Howdy, folks. This is Anthony, better known as Tony from Metal Monday, and I'm here to do a review.
Hey, you're not here to do a review. You get out of here. I don't know who you are or what show you're trying to steal, but I think you best give it a try.
You know what? It's my show, but I'll let you have a try, okay?
Well, today we've got a very special little something for you. My name's Doug, and I'm going to be your host tonight, like it or not. Tonight we've got one of my favorite albums of the now, Communion by Septicflesh. Take a good look at that. Now, I know what a lot of you people who don't know the band might be thinking. Septicflesh sounds like the name of some kind of schlocky grindcore band that writes songs about force-feeding prostitutes fecal matter and, well, genital mutilation, doesn't it? Well, for those of you who aren't aware, Septicflesh is pretty far from that. They're actually one of the premier symphonic metal bands from Greece who have an affinity for writing songs about ancient mythology and, well, history. We'll hear more lyrics about the fall of the city of Persepolis or the tale of Narcissus than you will about, say, ejaculating blood in their music. Now, the album itself. Communion is the 7th album by Septicflesh, which was released back in 2008. It combines some crushing death metal elements with symphonic orchestral scores to combine and make a new kind of metal listening experience. Now, I know what you all must be thinking again who haven't heard them before. Orchestras in death metal seem like oil and water. How does orchestra combine with death metal? Well, I'd like to take a step back tonight and really examine what makes the symphonic and metal elements of this band work so well together, and why a lot of other symphonic metal bands seem to fail for me. One of my big problems with symphonic metal bands is their over-reliance on the symphonic element of it. I really like to use the song To Mega Therion by the band Therion as an example for this. Now, right off the bat, there are two elements of the song that I really notice. One is this German radio choir, and it's singing this melody that sounds to me like a jingle that a used car salesman would use in an advertisement. And it's put up so obnoxiously high up in the mix that you can barely hear the rest of the song behind it. And, well, what is the rest of the song behind it sounds like kind of warm-up riff that Iron Maiden would play back when they were writing songs for Number of the Beast. Simply put, the entire composition of the song revolves around this German radio choir singing an obnoxious melody. It just sounds kind of silly. Now, I do love a lot of Therion's work. Please don't get mad at me over this, Therion fanboys. There's no reason to be upset. I absolutely adore their 2004 album Lemuria and Sirius B, but that's another topic for another time. Just in short, I think the song really does exemplify my problem with symphonic metal as a whole. Another good example would be the 2010 album Agony by Flesh God Apocalypse, which did try doing a little more extreme metal elements with the symphonic touch to it, but the problem is it just sounded like the same riff repeated through the entire album with different little orchestral scores played over it. There wasn't really any musical diversity going on. On the other hand, there are bands like Nightwish and Epica where the entire focus of the band seems to be on these more talented female lead vocalists, and a lot of the musicianship seems to get lost in the process. And that sort of ends up boring me in the end. So I don't really enjoy a lot of that female-fronted operatic symphonic metal. Now, I'm not saying these groups are without merit, but like I said, the more generic pop-oriented songwriting doesn't seem to really work for me in these symphonic metal albums. So, in the end, it's about finding that balance between metal and symphonic. And that's what I'm going to do. Now, I do legitimately enjoy works by Epica and Nightwish. I really did enjoy their Epica's 2009 album Design Your Universe. I thought it was great. And there are songs by Nightwish that I enjoy. But that's not important now. Let's move on to Septicflesh. They're a symphonic metal band that I feel has found that perfect balance between metal and orchestral elements in their music. If you were to strip away all of the orchestral score parts of their music in Communion, it would still be an awesome, crushing work of death metal music. The guitar riffs on songs such as the title track and Anubis are full of energy and power on their own, and the melodies of songs on Narcissus and songs such as Sunlight, Moonlight don't really need any orchestral scores to back them up and create some very engaging melodies. Then we get to the symphonic elements of this album. Yes, Septicflesh are indeed death metal, and quite a formidable death metal force at that. The symphonic elements of this album are nothing to scoff at. Let's start with the fact that the guitarist Christos Antonio is a guy who graduated with a master's degree in concert music from the London College of Music. This is a man who's professionally trained in composing classical style music. So if anyone knows how to put the symphonic element in symphonic metal, it's probably him. Now, he personally composed the entire orchestral score for this album with the Prague Philharmonic Orchestra, explicitly for the sake of this album. Like the death metal element of the album, on its own, the orchestral scores are nothing to scoff at. The best part about all of this, while both parts on their own do sound fantastic, is just how well these two things fit together as a dynamic harmony of brutality and beauty. On top of that, there's a nice variation in song structure and sound from song to song, creating an engaging experience for the listener. I never felt once in the album that it really got stale, and it never felt too long or drawn out. So it somehow, at the same time, manages to evoke a humbling sense of grandeur. In an album where most of the songs are only 4 minutes in length, there are few works of music that I know of that manage to combine this mighty level of death metal force and orchestral elegance and make it sound so good in such a short amount of time. I think that's why this symphonic metal album works so well for me. Communion, being more extreme, may not work for everyone, but for those willing to give it a shot, you will get an epic, spine-chilling musical experience that you probably will not hear elsewhere. I'd like to end this review with a little quote from the guitarist of Septicflesh, Clean Singer. He stated in an interview that the meaning of communion in the context of this album was that it was supposed to indicate a sort of communication between man and a non-human entity. This is sort of seconded by a little quote here from the inside cover of the CD case, if you're old school enough to buy CDs like me. It states, an attempt for communication with the non-human, higher intelligences often known as gods. So, basically they're saying that communion is, in a way, a communication with gods themselves. I'd also like to note that the first song on this album, Lovecraft's Death, is a concept album, or a concept song, about H.P. Lovecraft finding his writings to be somewhat prophetic in nature as he enters the realm of the dead. In other words, I guess what I'm trying to say is, this album was inspired by maybe a communion with the great old ones themselves? Ia, Cthulhu Fhtagn!